me. I did shorten it up a little bit. If you have your Bibles, turn to Ecclesiastes chapter 10. Ecclesiastes chapter 10. So next week, Mike's going to preach, and then the week after that, I'll finish up Ecclesiastes. We'll do 11 and 12 in 1 week. So we'll finish it up. And it's funny because I couldn't help this week but to think about the last couple of weeks. Like last week in chapter 9, it was all about death and how we have to approach death and see death through Solomon's eyes. And I've been thinking about how he shifted things a little bit. And he's going to shift it from here on out. And he wants to talk about how you're supposed to live life and the significance of in depth and meaning and beauty and beyond the comfort that we want to seek, right? We always want to go after the comfort level. And God's saying, no, seek me. We want to seek self, seek me. Lives are evidence of that. I'm not going to get too deep into this about last week. It's online if you want to see it. But our lives are evidence of that. And I want to know where you are in this. That's what I want to know. Where are you at? What Solomon's been talking about. Because here's the deal. When you die, you're no longer going to need oxygen, right? You don't need it. You're not. If you're a Christian, you're going to be at the table, man. You're going to be at the table. And your race is run. You get that, right? And you no longer need oxygen. And you and I, we can still breathe. We still have air in our lungs. And that's what Solomon was talking about last week. Through our nose and into our lungs, we have air, and we still have life, and we can still talk and speak and testify to what God has done. And that's what Solomon did for us last week. If you remember, we still have life. That's what he was talking about. So what are you doing with it? And that's his question. And what he's going to unpack for us in chapter 10 is what a life well-lived looks like. And that's what the sermon's called, a life well-lived. And I'll tell you, it's a hard text. Not as hard as last week, but it's hard. It's a hard text because he's going to say, wise people do this and dumb people do this. And he's just going to come out and say that straight out. I mean, and I think that you'll find yourself on the dumb side of the fence more than you will on the smart side. Because I did. I mean, it just read my life. I mean, it read which side of the fence are you on? Are you on the dumb side or the wise side? And there's a lot of changes that need to be made as we work through this. All right, we're going to start in Ecclesiastes. That's as quick as I can do a beginning. You guys know my beginnings are pretty long. But Ecclesiastes chapter 10, verse 2. A wise man's heart inclines him to the right, but a fool's heart to the left. So here's my thing. I cannot believe that the Republican Party has not picked this up, right? And put this on all these T-shirts and all these brochures and every commercial, right? I mean, a wise man's to the right and a fool's heart's to the left, right? It should be just written everywhere. I can't believe it. Just to further show us that Jesus was a Republican, right? That's what that's where they're going. Solomon says here that all these different categories that we fall into earth, right? You've got pretty people, you've got ugly people. That's just the way it is, all right? And you've got rich people, you got poor people, you got smart people, you got dumb people, and then you've got all these subcategories of people, right? You've got all these subcategories. Not all of us are supermodels, right? Right, John? Sorry, wrong John. but not all of us are supermodels, but not all of us frighten small children, right? That's me. And most of us are in the middle of that mix. We're not pretty ugly. We're not ugly. We fall in the middle of all this. And he just says, hey, listen, let's throw all these categories out because it doesn't matter how pretty you are, how ugly you are, how rich, how smart. Let's throw it all out because there's two things that you need to look at. There's two things you need to do to evaluate your life and go from there. And that is to walk the right way. Simple, right? Is it simple? I don't think so. But that's the way of the wise. And then there's the wrong way, right, to walk, and which is for the fool, right? And we've already defined what it looks like to be wise. And we decided that what it looks like to be wise according to Solomon and the sacred literature, our Bible that we study, is that people understand that there's something bigger than them. They're not after comfort. They're not chasing stuff. They're not creating their own God. They're not chasing the Jesus that's not in the Bible. They're not creating their own God, which is what it ends up being. But they walk in obedience to God. His promises are true. They are greater than anything else. And that's the wise man. Now look how it defines the fool. And if you look hard, if you have a hard time arguing that this guy's not a fool, if you just look at it, right? Verse 3. Even when the fool walks on the road, he lacks sense, and he says to everyone that he is a fool. So today, when you and I get in our car and we head out and we go down, was this Center Street, I think, right? Center Street, or we go up 23 or whatever, and whatever road you're on, and there's a guy walking down the middle of the road, right? Would we all agree that that's a fool? I mean, if I'm driving down Route 4 and there's a guy skipping along right in the middle of the road, right? If he's doing that on Route 4, then there's got to be something wrong. I'm either going to do one or two things. I'm going to call the cops, or I'm going to call an ambulance because I just hit the guy probably because he's skipping through there, right? And I didn't see him. But let's roll it down to a deeper level. You want to know who this fool is, why this man pretends he's indestructible? Do we not pretend we're indestructible? Because you stand at the center of your own universe sometimes. And that's the fool. The fool is the one who feels big despite what the universe screams. Right? I mean, God has wired us in the universe to communicate how fragile, how small, how insignificant we are compared to Him. And if you don't believe me, let's get on an airplane, right? And let's go to the ocean, right? And if you just pictured Lake Erie or Delaware Dam, you're not with me. That's not an ocean. But look at this picture. She's going to put it up here. I think. Maybe. That's the picture of an ocean. That's the picture of when you stand beside something like that you just feel really tiny. I mean, God's even went to the extent of this, and show the picture of the two seas. He's went to the extent, this is the Caribbean Sea on the right side, and the Atlantic on the left, and they don't mix. Do you get that? Look at it. They don't mix. It's hard to see maybe. I don't know how good it is to see from there. But they don't mix. God's hand holds them back. And if you can stand beside an ocean, if you've been to the Pacific Ocean, the roar that's there, just how mighty, or just how small you would feel and how mighty our God is, maybe except for the fool. I mean, who's wrestled the ocean and won? And that picture that's there, if you go back to the other side of this island, there's boats. There's 180 plus boats on the bottom of this island. It's where the Morton Salt used to get their salt from. And it's a big salt sting, but it never splits. But there's nothing there but a lighthouse and boats scattered through the bottom of the ocean all through there. You can't do anything. You can't go down there. It's like 15-foot waves coming down constantly, breaking off the coast. But you know what's funny? It never mixes. The Atlantic Ocean never mixes with the Caribbean. Same thing with the Pacific. It never mixes with the Atlantic. They never mix. God holds them back. But nobody but the fool would think that they could wrestle with that ocean and win. Right? No one sits at the base of a mountain. Once again, if you're in southern Ohio thinking, oh, I'm in hill country, that's the mountains. No, that's not. All right? And this is Mount Etna. I took this picture with Kayla. We were blessed to be there. This is Mount Etna. There's 165 people that live at the base of this active volcano. Right? So you can see it's smoking, and we were standing right there. But if you stand next to that, I should have put the picture of Kaylee up there beside it and seen how small it looks, her to the mountain. But if you stand beside a mountain and you think that you are bigger than the mountain, or you don't feel small, right? So maybe you don't believe me still. Maybe you're still saying, let me just ask this question. Do people that do Pilates and eat spinach, do they still get cancer? They do. And how about the guy who runs marathons? Does he finish a 26-mile marathon and go into his garage and die of a heart attack? Happens a lot. So I don't need to keep going. The fool pretends that these things are not reality. And that's what he's saying. Fool does not think about the fact that maybe even today, that your life is required and then judgment. So look at the next line. And I love this next line. And he says this: if the anger of a ruler rises against you, do not leave your place, for calmness will lay great offenses to rest. And this is great. Because there's something about a fallen world. And again, anything Genesis 3, right? Genesis 3, fallen world, right? Where people who think they are the center of the universe, and we get this all the time when I talk to people, and I don't say it, they think that they are God, or they create their own Jesus, and they whatever it is, and they rise to these levels of power, right? And then they rise to being your supervisors, your bosses, or whatever that is. And all of a sudden, we want to run away from those people because of the way they act, right? I mean, I do. I want to run away from them. And Solomon says, here's the deal. They're everywhere. No matter where you go, there's people that are fools who think they are the center of the universe. Do you see that? You should see that. I mean, everywhere. And he's saying just calm down and breathe and don't run and don't move from this place or place to place to place, because running away from a broken world, you can't get away from it. The whole world is broken. But I am greater than that. So no matter where you are, they're there. And then moving on, he says in verse 5, there's an evil that I have seen under the sun, as it were an error proceeding from the ruler. Folly is set in many high places, the rich set in a low place. And I have seen slaves on horses and princes walking on the ground like slaves. So here's what he says. In the maddening of a world where stupidity and folly and debauchery and wickedness and all these things are exalted, right? Everything that's evil seems to be more exalted, right? And they're put up like the crowning achievement that you need to pursue. Do you see that in the world? You see that when you watch TV, right? And you see that. But what is good and what is right and what makes a difference walks on the right side of the road. So 100 years ago, think about this. And some of you guys are closer to that than me, right? 100 years ago, famous people were doctors and scientists. Were they not? I mean, they were doctors and scientists. And now when you turn on the TV, the only thing you can find out is if J-Lo and A-Rod are dating somewhere, right? You don't see anything like that. Those are the people that we exalt now. I mean, the Kardashians, really? I don't get that. I mean, that the whole thing is, that's all you see. You don't see the people that are making a difference in the world. You see people that are just their own God. They're exalting the world, right? And the image that we exalt in our culture, and it puts on high people like that. It's baffling to me. But listen, I'm not a hater. I'm not a hater. I don't understand these people. I get it. And if you like them, I apologize. But I don't get it. I mean, these people are doing vile things, and it's being promoted, and we put that out there. And all right, we just got to keep going. Verse 10. I'm going fast, I know, but this is where he's going to give us a warning about life. He's going to give us a warning. He who digs a pit will fall into it, and a serpent will bite him who breaks through a wall. He who quarries stones is hurt by them, and he who splits logs is endangered by them. If the iron is blunt and one does not sharpen the edge, he must use more strength, but wisdom helps one to succeed. If the serpent bites before it is charmed, there is no advantage to the charmer. That's a tough verse. So what he's saying is the alarm clock goes off, and a guy reaches over and he shuts it off, and he gets up and he takes his shower, puts his work clothes on, and he's been doing the same thing over and over for 20 years. He drinks his cup of coffee, he kisses his wife and his kids goodbye, and he gets in his truck and he heads out and he begins to dig a ditch. And he's dug ditches for 20 years. Same thing. He's a professional, right? He's dug it. He's did it over and over. He's did it for 20 years. And then this day, for whatever reason, he's digging a ditch. And he stumbles over a stone and he falls in the pit and he dies. And a man wakes up and he's been, every day for 30 years, he's been breaking down walls and breaking down walls and breaking down walls. And except for this time when he broke the wall, there's a snake in it and it bit him. And he died. And Solomon says this, life is hard, it's unpredictable, you don't have any control over it, God is in control, but there's wise things that we can do. And then he uses this great illustration about a guy and the logs, and he takes out the axe, right? And he doesn't just go out and start knocking down trees. He takes the axe and he sharpens it and he sharpens it and he sharpens it. He sees that it's still dull and he sharpens it and he sharpens it and he sharpens it, right? And then he goes out and he cuts the trees down. And he's saying in this text, in today's, this is what came to mind. He's saying, work smarter, not harder. I think he's saying this. I think he's saying that the wise men and women know they're going to have a plan to get there. They just don't go do something. They have a plan to get there. And there's three things that I want. No more and no less. And God knows my heart. I want to preach and teach the gospel of Jesus Christ to you and to everyone that I talk to. I want to do that with the best that I can with the gifts that God gave me, right? And I want to do that, and I want to be a great husband, and I want my kid not to doubt my sincerity for my love for Jesus. Never doubt that. And for her to love me and my wife and to love the church and never hate and run from the church. Those are the three things I want. That's all I want. But here's what I realize when I pursue these things. They don't just happen. They will never just happen. It's like you don't just stumble into godliness, right? I mean, have you ever noticed like somebody who walked in, maybe they walk in and turn the channel on and they're watching ESPN and all of a sudden Shekinah glory just hits them and they're all there. That's never going to happen, right? Maybe, but I think about when I was a child, when I was young, or when Kaylee was growing up, and I'm talking about under 5. And this is what I noticed right away. And you think about your grandkids right now. Think about if you notice this. They like to give you one-word answers, right? So Kaylee was going to a Christian preschool. I remember this. And I would say, so how was school? It was okay. That's it. What'd you learn about? I don't know. I mean, I just picked you up. What'd you learn about? I don't know. Or because she was in Christian preschool, she'd give me this answer like Jesus, Moses, Noah, somebody, I don't know. Right? So you got to be, she's kind of, a little precocious. She's got a little mouthy. I think she got it from her mom, not from me. But you can always tell there's something going on up there. You can always tell she's thinking, right? You can always see that. And I want to know what it is sometimes. And so what I've learned is maybe you got it, and maybe you think this is absurd, but I noticed this. At 4 years old and 27, the same thing, right? Same person. 4-year-old, 27, same to me right now. And as steadfast as I love her, I still think it's easier to listen, sometimes to music than to talk to them. Maybe to pick up my iPad or my phone, right? So when you're in the car with your grandkid or your kid, is it not easier just to turn the music on and not talk? And maybe I found out what I found out, and she's going to know my secret after today, right? Is that maybe I would say, hey, what was the favorite part of your day? And I got an answer. What was the favorite part of your day? What was the worst part of your day, And I remember she said one time, oh, I got pushed down by a kid. And I said, pushed down? How old was he? 6. 6? I'll dress Mike up like a elementary kid and send him in there then. And I didn't know Mike then. But listen, I want to love my wife, and I want to love her well, right? And I don't ever want to doubt. I don't want her to doubt the love for my wife. And if you're married in here, you should be the same way. Or if you have friends or whatever it is, you should never want them to doubt the love that you have for them. The pace of life. The pace of life and how busy we are, right? I mean, the first couple of years that I was here, and I work a full-time job, and I do this, and I'm thinking, oh yeah, it'll settle down, and then all of a sudden it'll even out. It never did. It's always been the same pace, and it never changed, and it just kept going, and I'm thinking, how do you do this? How do you work this out? But there has to be a plan. And I'm terrible at plans. I'm okay at work. But how am I going to accomplish some of the things that go on, I mean, some of these dudes in here, you're like John, not this John. This John, he's got like poetry falling out of his mouth like it's in his pockets, right, But I'm not that guy. I don't know about the other John. He may have that too. I'd talk to his wife later and see. But I guess my question is, where are you headed in life? Do you have a plan to get where you're headed? Do you know the simple things that we've taught you about where God wants you to go? It's simple. I mean, He wants you to testify. He wants you to tell everyone, like John said earlier, the other John. And if you hear something else that I say tonight, I want you to hear this thing. If you're not careful, Your want-tos are going to become I wish I would-haves. Your want-tos are going to become I wish I would-haves. And then what? Then what? That little bit about the snake charmer, and he says, who cares if there's a snake, who cares if there's a snake charmer and he blows his horn, but the snake still bites you, right? Who cares about that? Then you've got a guy with a flute dead on the floor, right? That's really all you got. And then the snake charmer, he's not charming the snake. What good is he? What good is it if you want to be a godly man, if you want to be a godly woman, if you want to raise godly kids, if you want to do this thing, if you want to have an active faith, if you want to know Jesus, what good is it for you, but you do nothing to head that way? Listen, I don't believe in the power of self. I believe in grace and empowerment of the Holy Spirit, and the sanctification is a process of God in you. Nobody gets holy by sitting on the couch. Nobody loves their wife fully or their husband fully by not working at it. It's not enough to want to, which will give away to I wish I could have or I wish I would have. All right, let's keep reading. The words of a wise man's mouth win him favor. Sounds like the jet plane landed. But the lips of a fool consume him. The beginning of the words of his mouth is foolishness, and the end of his talk is evil madness. A fool multiplies words, though no man knows what it is to be, and who can tell him what will be after him? So a wise man knows where he's going. A wise woman knows where they're going. They know what they want to be. They have a plan that they're working to, and they surround themselves with men and women who are beyond him, who exemplify what they can be later in life. And the fool surrounds himself with people who are stuck in the same rut as he is, and they're going nowhere. There is no plan. There is no desire for Jesus. There is no desire for anything else. You got to pay attention to this. Look for, and this is a tough crowd for this one, right? Look for older people, right? That's why I keep, you know what? Nancy's forgotten more about the Bible than I ever knew. I mean, she's been a Christian for 50 years, chasing God. You got to look for people that love Jesus, love the church, which is us, not the building. And love them and hang out with them. Hang out with them. Because it's not that they did it right. It's just that God might speak through them, through His grace, and give you something that might be able to give you some insight on something. Hang out with people who spend their money well, because I know, the dangers of trinkets, right? That's me. I mean, toys, and I still like them, right? I like them. Don't waste your money here is what they'll tell. And then I'm like, where'd you get that? Still happens to me. I still chase things. They sparkle, right? I want them. Be around people who spend their money well. Someone who leverages their cash for the kingdom, right? Be around them. Let them speak some life into you through God, and let them walk with, don't just walk with a bunch of people who are content. They have no hope of doing anything else in their life or changing. The scriptures say that's what the wise man does. He chases the man who understands what God is saying to you. And then verse 15. The toil of a fool wearies him, for he does not know the way to the city. So again, I told you this every week. Solomon's ADD. I firmly believe this after going through all these chapters, and he's jumping again. He says, listen, because I find this to be really a person who does, it's just so true, a person who does not know where he's going, if you have no plan, what he's trying to be or what you're trying to accomplish or what you're just exhausting life, right? Think about it, how exhausting is life if you don't know what you're doing because you're walking where you don't know where you're going and you have nowhere to go and you're not chasing anything but yourself. And they exemplify what we talked about early on is that man on a treadmill that we talked about all through Ecclesiastes, where you're on a treadmill and you're running and you're not getting anywhere because you're chasing something that's not there. You're running your guts out, but you're not going anywhere. So you got to keep this in mind. There are times in marriage where it's like going uphill and it's just like this, or maybe even like that, and you fall, right? I don't know. I mean, there are times in marriage, days, weeks, months, even years sometimes, where it's hard and it's difficult. That's the example, right? But in the end, with the end in mind, which you are commanded to do, right? Being obedient to Christ, growing old and, sipping coffee or Diet Coke as old men, old women, rejoicing what Jesus has did, what he has did, not you, with the end in mind, knowing that beyond the sun is where we're headed, right? And those difficult days won't overwhelm you because you know what happens in the end. We've went through Revelations, you know what happens. And he's saying that a good person, or saying that a person has no idea where he's going, no idea where he's going to become, or no idea what life holds for him, right? We don't know that. No goals, nowhere to go, and we have a tendency to get overwhelmed by nothing. Anyone? There's nothing there, and then we're overwhelmed by it. But look at what else it has a tendency to do. Verse 16. Woe to you, O land, when your king is a child and your princes feast in the morning. He's saying, and just real quickly, the people who have no idea where they're going have a tendency to start the party before anyone else gets there. So they have a tendency to start drinking before the sun goes down. Right? And then the next piece, he just throws this in. Happy are you, O land, when your king is the son of nobility, which he's saying the son of a king knows he's going to be king, so he knows where he's going, right? And he says, and your princes feast at the proper time for strength and not for drunkenness. And this is such a great line because once again it says, hey, listen, there's a time to party. There's a time when you celebrate and it strengthens your soul. He's telling you it will strengthen your soul. He uses that to strengthen because you're with good friends, you have good conversations, you have dinner, right? We talked about that. He talks about that all through the book. But look at the next line. And this is usually what happens to a person who has no clue what's going on. No clue. This is what happens. Through sloth, the roof sinks in, and through indulgence, the house leaks. Bread is made for laughter, and wine gladdens life, and money answers everything. Money answers everything. And everybody gets excited, right? It's like, Jesus wants me rich. Yes. I'll be playing the lottery tonight. You have to read this verse backwards to kind of get it, right? It's not a sin to be poor. It's not a sin to be rich. The only sin here is it's a sin to be lazy. So money affords us opportunity. Money enables us to pay rent and buy a house, buy a car. Money enables us to buy a dining room table. I don't know. And then let me answer you a question. Is bread really made for laughter? Has anyone ate bread and just laughed, right? I mean, bread's not made for laughter. That's not what he's talking about. That's not what he's referencing. What Solomon's referencing again is dinner. I mean, it's like every other time that we talk about this, every 9 verses, and dinner, eat together. Diet Coke is good, right? It's like every 9 or 10 verses he's saying, eat together. A church, you're together, and he just did it again. Or families that you have, and he's saying work hard and spend your money wisely. Buy a big dining room table so your friends can sit around and enjoy dinner with you, because God has provided that to you. Drink your drink responsibly, and laugh at your bad jokes when you're sitting there. Enjoy that, and that's what money affords you. So the wise man knows where he's going and what he wants to be, and he knows how to spend his money, and he knows what he's been called to do. He surrounds himself with people that are working this plan. They're gaining wisdom from them. He parties with the strength and not the drunkenness, right? It's not drunkenness. He never numbs the realities of life. All right, let's keep going. Even in your thought, Do not curse the king, nor in your bedroom curse the rich, for a bird of the air will carry your voice, or some winged creature tell the matter. So what he's saying is, have you ever been busted? You ever been walked into a middle of a conversation and you ran your mouth and you just nobody? No, me either. I've never. No, me either. But I've heard this. Well, I heard people say that, but I never got busted before. But I mean, have you ever walked into a room and there's like 9 people talking and you're like, yeah, and you say one little thing and all of a sudden they bust you, the person you're talking about? Everybody's dogging someone. He says the wise understands that he lives a sinful, broken world. He understands that, of which you are a part of that. And here's the part that got me. And I think I do a decent job about not bad-mouthing people too bad, not out loud with my mouth, right? But he says, even the wise man, he won't even lay at bed at night and think about when you go to sleep, right before you go to bed, you're like, man, I should have said that to him, right? It's just killing you because even the wise man won't even do that. He won't even lay in bed at night and say things in his head because that I don't battle flesh and blood, spirits and principalities. I pray for them. I pray for their heart. I pray for them seeking faith from God. The wise man, your enemy, your rival, your angry spouse or kid, right? That guy at work that you just can't stand. We all have them if you work. Pray for him. Pray for their heart. Pray for God to give them faith. All right, let's finish up. Very quickly, the wise man is generous, right? The wise man is generous with his money. He's generous with his bread. He's generous with his drink. He's generous with his car. He's generous with his clothes. And then this conclusion, he says this. If the clouds are full of rain, they empty themselves on earth. And if a tree falls to the south or to the north, in the place where it falls, there it lie. There's your answer to that question. He observes the wind will not sow, and he who regrets the clouds will not reap. And as you do not know the way the Spirit comes to the bones in the womb of a woman with child, right? We don't know that. So you do not know the work of God who makes everything. In the morning sow your seed, and at the evening withhold not your hand, for you do not know which will prosper, this or that, or whether both alike will be good. This is the hardest word that Solomon has in this chapter. And he just says this. Quit making lame excuses for your laziness and sinfulness and be obedient to what God has commanded you. Stop making excuses. God comes to man and he asks him to walk through the forest, right? And the man looks up and the trees are blowing. He says, hey, wait a minute, I can't do that. One of those trees might blow down and hit me. I'm just not going to do that. I think I'll just stay here. Or God comes to the man and he says, plant seeds. Plant seeds. Okay, I'll plant seeds, but here's the deal. There's a thunderstorm coming, and if it rains, it's just going to wash it all away. So I don't think I'm going to do it. And he does nothing. He's heard from the Lord. He's been spoken to. He does nothing. He makes excuses for not moving. And Solomon says, give me a break. You're breathing and you're wasting your breath. You're wasting your breath. Now go. Well, what about the tree? Well, the tree could fall on you, right? But then maybe you'll be with me. Maybe you won't. And the tree could fall. And nobody knows the way of God. And that's the point. Sometimes the guy who digs the pits every day, maybe he falls in. We all have problems at work or wherever our life is. We all have problems with our spouses. We all have problems. Maybe the tree falls and hits you. I don't know. All man can do is accept that we have limitations of not which God has, and God is saying, be obedient to me, and he reveals himself to us. And he says, go through the forest. Plant the seeds. I think there's this thing that bothers me a lot, and I get this maybe from work, but this thing that is, how did busyness become this badge of honor? You know what I mean? where there's busy people that have this badge of honor all the time. Like I worked with this guy, and this is what he did. He would get a brand new pair of gloves. He would dip them on a dye or in oil like this, and then he'd walk around real fast and act like he was working. He actually did nothing the whole time. That was what he did. He would dip them in there, and he would run around with his gloves on, and everybody was thinking he was so busy. When the boss came around, then he thought man, that guy's a worker. Look how dirty his gloves are. Sometimes he'd rub a little grease on his arms, but he looked like he was busy. I'm not talking about Mike, so we're going to keep moving.
I was going to make it anyway.
Yeah. Tool and die guy, You don't answer this question. You don't get a badge of honor for something like that. When do we go to a place like, I'm busy, and it shows how cool and powerful we are. Just think about this. Somebody's talking to me, and I got my phone out, and I'm checking emails. Oh, did you say something? I was really busy. I was really busy. Oh, hang on a second. No, I wasn't talking to you. I had this thing in my ear. I was talking to someone else. But go ahead. Well, I'm listening now. Go ahead. You get that? It's our idols, right? All right, so I'm working this plan. My plan, I told you my plan. Will it work? That's out of my hands. Will our grandchildren, will our children and grandchildren, I can't say grandchildren, love Jesus? Love the church, love mom, love dad. With all my heart, I hope so. I think my daughter does. But we have no guarantees. None. It's above your pay grade. But I'm not expecting it to happen accidentally either, right? So I drug her to church when she was little. I drug her mom to church sometimes too when she was younger. I'm not even going there. And I want to be the best possible pastor, preacher, teacher I can be, but is that going to accidentally happen? No. I got to work, I got to read, I got to wrestle with some of you, I got to have conversations. And I keep telling you, I'm always open. My phone's always open. I'm traveling. I traveled 3 days this week. I got 0 phone calls from you, so shame on you if you wanted to talk. But what about you? What about you? It's not accidentally going to happen. I mean, the first question is, do you know who you are? Do you know Jesus? Do you know who you're trying to become? What are you trying to become? What kind of guy or kind of girl are you trying to become? I mean, do you already have some of these, I wish I would have done this. You fill in the blank. See, the thing about the I wish I would have done this thing is, they just keep building, and you have to put feet on them so they walk away. Lay them at the feet of Jesus. Repent if it needs to be repented of. I don't have many goals. I haven't been given my goals at work. I don't have them, so it bugs me. And we're going to, today we're going to sing one more song. I'll pray, you'll be dismissed. I'm going to get in my car, I'm going to head home, I'm going to eat lunch with my wife, and we're going to eat some dirty food, right? It's going to be something that's probably going to take years off our life, McDonald's, whatever. I'm probably going to have fast food, something horrible. We're going to drive to Columbus, and we've got this just stuff where we have this obsession with this auction site, and my wife ordered me 10 shells by accident. That's pretty cool, like for our new house, and we're going to go pick that up, and all the way there, we're going to talk, and she's going to critique my sermon, give me a B for presentation. Why didn't you tuck your shirt in again? You went long. B on presentation. And I told her I'm never going to tuck my shirt in unless Johnny Mac shows up. And I'll tuck it in. I'll wear the suit. I'm coming with the suit that day. That's it. And then we'll do that. And, maybe later we'll have dinner with the kids. And we'll make fun of each other and make fun of my wife and make fun, we'll laugh and we'll have dinner and we'll have bad jokes and we'll have great family. And I'll drink Diet Coke and they'll drink their filtered water that costs $1 million, right? And it'll just keep flowing and flowing and flowing. Great family things, and the alarm will go off tomorrow and I'll get up at 5:30. And I'll think about hitting the snooze button 10 times while that music's going off on my phone, but if I hit it, I know my wife will kill me. So I get up, I go to the bathroom, I get ready, I head to the office, and I'll work my work, and I'll start my sermon during the week, and I'll work on it all week, and I'll do my prayers and my Bible study, and I'll open the scriptures once and again, and pray and wrestle for chapter 11 and 12. And I got 2 weeks for that, so I'll try to be the best passable pastor I can be. But my question is, what are you doing today? What are you doing tonight? What are you doing tomorrow? Because sometimes you wake up and you go fishing, right? That's fun for some of us. Sometimes you wake up, go to school. Sometimes you wake up and whatever, you fill in your blank, and you do whatever. And sometimes you do things all day, and all your want tos all of a sudden become I wish I have tos. It'll get away from you fast. I wish I had done something. I don't think my grammar's correct in there some way. It's probably hillbilly. It's okay. But don't let that get away from you. Don't let it get away from you. Don't let your family get away from you. Don't let your spouse get away from you. Don't let your friends get away from you. Don't let Jesus get away from that. Where does he fit into your life? Where does he fit into everything that goes on? He should be the center of it all. But he sanctifies. Let's pray.